Hi and welcome to Two Wheel Reviews. Now it's been a while since I've been able to do one of these, and today we're going to be looking at something a little bit different from your typical run-of-the-mill street bike. What we have here is the Armstrong MT500. Now these bikes, although they're all civilian now, originally started off life as a general workhorse in the military. The military brief required a vehicle that was rugged, capable of handling off-road and on-road duties, is sturdy and simple and easy to maintain and service if necessary in the field. Now, a company you may have heard of called CCM in Bolton, make custom off-road machines, stepped forward at the time with this design, which is actually based on an early 80s Italian motocrosser design called the SWM Tornado. Now when SWM folded in 1984, Armstrong bought the rights to produce the Tornado motorcycle, and ultimately with a few little changes here and there, what we ended up with was the Armstrong MT500 as we know it today. This bike was to replace the two-stroke 250cc Cannon Bombardier and first saw service in the Falklands conflict. Now the bike fits the design brief very well. It's sturdy and easy to work on and maintain. The supplied toolkit would allow you to do a full service by the roadside should the need arise. In fact, I can say with all honesty, it's the most comprehensive toolkit I've ever seen supplied with any motorbike. It's constructed from tubular and box section welded steel. It has a single cylinder dry sump 500cc road tax engine with a belt driven overhead camshaft fed through a 30mm Amal carburetor. The oil for the engine is held in a tank underneath the petrol tank, which forms part of the frame. It comes down through a primary filter into the engine and the secondary filter, around the engine internals, and is pumped back up the frame into the oil tank at the top. Like most modern off-road bikes, it has a 21-inch front wheel and an 18-inch rear wheel, so finding tyres is as easy as finding tyres for modern off-roaders. Now the whole bike is, if anything, over-engineered, but that stands it well in terms of ruggedness. For example, the front wheel uses 4 bearings instead of the typical 2. The rear uses 6 instead of the typical 3. The rear suspension units are Öhlins. The front forks Marzocchi. And the wheel rims are Acront magnesium alloy. The rear wheel utilises a quick disconnect system which allows you to leave the chain, rear sprocket and carrier and rear brake fixed in place, making roadside puncture repairs or tyre changes a breeze. Aside from the typical olive drab paint and general appearance, there are hints of its military life in things like the huge filler neck to accommodate sloppily wielded jerry cans of fuel, and the retaining chain on the filler cap ensuring that it's not lost in a hurried situation. The electrical side of the bike is kept to a bare minimum, enough to power the lights, horn, indicators and dash panel, with the simplest instrument binnacle you're ever likely to see. Switchgear is pretty much as you'd expect to see on any mainstream machine, with indicators and horn on the left switchgear. The headlight is switched at the 3-stage ignition. First position is off, then side light, then dip beam, and your main beam is switched at the left handlebar as you would on a normal motorcycle. On the right panel is this switch. You'd think the engine kill switch initially, but it is, in official parlance, the Blackout Switch, or as I like to call it, the run silent, run deep switch, or the stealth mode. It's true, we never really do grow up. As the name suggests, this disables every circuit feeding a light or noise emitting electrical component, while allowing the engine to continue running for those late night stealth runs to the local chippy for covert suppers. It's completely useless for road bike use, and lots of owners convert this switch for use with, say, heated grips, but I think it adds a level of charm, keeping it for its original function. In 1987, the manufacturing rights to the MT were purchased by Harley Davidson in the US. This was ultimately related to Harley Davidson's use of Rotax motors for competition use rather than any military bearing. Harley Davidson produced the MT for a couple of years, then with NATO involvement it was modernised. The overall design looked the same, but it gained a smaller capacity 350cc motor with electric start, in addition to its kickstarter, disc brakes front and rear, and front-mounted hard plastic panniers. There's speculation that the placement may be related to heat shielding as they cover the engine sides, but there's no definite answer to this. Okay, so there's enough of the history there. Let's get out and ride it and see how it performs on the road. Now, starting isn't the normal press the button scenario you'd expect with modern bikes. The 500 is kickstart only, but with a well set up bike is easy to start. Once worn through, it settles happily into a lumpy tick-over, and amazingly for a huge single-cylinder pump, has so little vibration you wouldn't know it was a single underneath you. Although it only pumps out 32 brake horsepower, making it ideal for new restricted access riders incidentally, it has plenty enough poke to keep up with the ebb and flow of modern traffic. It's light and nimble enough to carve a path through city traffic, and especially with road bias tyres like the Avon Distanzias fitted to this one, grips and handles excellently for a tall off-road biased machine. The drum brakes, though poor by modern disc standards, are among the best I've used. They have plenty of bite and scrub speed off quickly when you grab a handful. There are typical comments heard about the MT, like it's a heavy bike, the rear suspension is stiff, and it requires modifications to get it to start more reliably. Frankly, it's nonsense. Sure, if you're comparing this to a 125 motocrosser or the latest KTM dirt track monster, it is heavy, yet it feels much lighter and more manageable than a Jap 4 600cc sports bike. The suspension, again, compared to a small capacity motocrosser is firm, but maybe because I'm used to riding sports bikes, I don't find it particularly unforgiving. As for the modifications, with original equipment spec, and properly serviced and set up as this machine is, it works perfectly well, starting second or third kick from cold and first when warm, and tales of carburettor changes to improve the bike typically become drawn-out tales of woe and constant stripping and rejetting to get things running right. The old adage certainly applies here. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, the MT will see a comfortable 70 miles per hour on the clock with rider, tank bag and rear luggage rack fully laden, with plenty more oomph in reserve. The main downside of this, and the 350 likewise, is the small petrol tank capacity of 12 litres, given the range of approximately 120 miles between fill-ups. It's best to plan on filling every 100 miles or carry a petrol can if you're planning long journeys. Although you can now buy a useful large capacity tank made by a company called Apophis. This gives a much better fuel range per fill-up. Apophis also specialise in MT spares. On that note, while the MT is an ex-MOD machine, the spares availability is excellent and service spares are cheap. Okay, so that's the end of the MT review. There's really very little else to add to the end of this. Safe to say that if you want something that's a little bit different and a conversation starter, as well as a rugged, dependable, reliable daily runaround that's easy to work on yourself, then you really can't go far wrong with one of these bikes. You have to watch out for certain components. Certain things can be expensive to replace, such as the rear shockers because they're Oland's units, for example, and the rear hub, which is a common failing point on the MT500s due to catalytic corrosion. But in the main, they're very cheap to own, run and maintain. Service spares are very affordable, and being the kind of bike they are, they're ideal for parking outside, throwing a cover over and just uncovering and riding to and from work and daily in any weather. So I hope you've enjoyed the review. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions that I may be able to answer, please ask away. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.